Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. In a distant future where advanced alien civilizations span the galaxy, a strange new occurrence left an indelible mark on the history of intergalactic relations. It was a phenomenon that terrified the mightiest warlords and shocked the most battle-hardened strategists across the stars. The story unfolded when the alien generals, long accustomed to dominating war and conquering distant worlds, had to come face to face with an unsettling truth. The Deathworlder cadets, a group of human trainees, had completed a year-long survival course under conditions that had left even the most brutal alien soldiers gasping in awe and terror. This was no ordinary survival exercise. This was a challenge that tested the limits of their endurance, resourcefulness, and sheer will to survive. The humans who had volunteered for this survival course were from a species known for their resilience and brutality, the so-called Deathworlders. To other, more advanced and less war-torn species, Earth was a far-flung, chaotic planet. It was a world where constant warfare, a brutal environment, and dangerous animals had shaped human evolution into something raw, unpredictable, and fiercely adaptive. But even among the Deathworlders, there were those who stood out as the epitome of what it meant to be human warriors who had proven their mettle time and again in both physical and psychological challenges. These cadets, drawn from various Earth-based military academies, were chosen not just for their strength, but for their potential to push the boundaries of human endurance. They had been subjected to the most difficult conditions imaginable, designed to break them or forge them into something stronger. The alien generals, familiar with military protocols and challenges of their own species, had no inkling that humans could endure what they were about to witness. The course was located on an isolated, harshly inhospitable planet chosen specifically because of its extreme conditions. It was a place where survival was almost impossible for any sentient species that didn't possess the intrinsic toughness that defined humanity. Temperatures fluctuated drastically between deadly heat and bone-chilling cold. Violent storms ravaged the terrain, making navigation nearly impossible. The landscape itself was a maze of sharp rocks, dense jungles filled with carnivorous plants, and deep, treacherous ravines that seemed to threaten death at every turn. For the alien generals, the course had been a carefully designed test. They had underestimated the humans at first. Many of them laughed at the idea of Deathworlders completing a course like this. How could a race, so seemingly primitive and chaotic, possibly endure such conditions without crumbling under the weight of nature's hostility? They were convinced that the challenge would expose the weaknesses of the humans, forcing them to fail and reaffirm their belief that the Deathworlders were inferior to the more advanced, disciplined, and controlled alien species. The alien generals had prepared themselves for failure, not only for the humans but for the spectacle of their suffering. They planned to study them, catalog their failures, and prove once and for all that their military doctrine and superior technology were the real keys to survival. But the reality of the situation quickly proved them wrong. As the first few months of the course dragged on, the cadets endured the tests with a stoic determination that left the generals uneasy. They saw human ingenuity in the face of danger, a creativity that bent the rules of nature itself to their will. While the aliens relied heavily on advanced technology to assist their soldiers, the humans seemed to be entirely self-sufficient. They built shelters from the raw materials of the planet's environment, used basic tools with an effectiveness that baffled their onlookers, and, most unsettling of all, they demonstrated a psychological resilience that no alien had ever imagined possible. By the halfway point of the course, the generals were already beginning to question their assumptions. While some cadets had suffered injuries, scrapes, burns, and bruises that would have incapacitated most other species, none had broken. There were moments of exhaustion, moments of fear, but they always picked themselves up. They adapted. They learned. The cadets didn't rely on advanced technology to ease their suffering. Instead, they used it as a last resort, preferring to rely on their wit, teamwork, and indomitable spirit to face whatever dangers arose. One of the generals, a veteran of countless wars and conquests, couldn't help but stare in disbelief as a human cadet, a young woman named Claire, used nothing more than a small flare gun and a few pieces of metal to repair an emergency beacon in the middle of a violent storm. She had no right to be alive, let alone functional, after being caught in the storm. Yet there she was, in the midst of one of the worst conditions imaginable, her face set in an expression of absolute concentration as she completed the task with precise, almost mechanical efficiency. But this was only a fraction of the story. As the course continued, the humans demonstrated their ability to deal with threats that would have sent other species fleeing for their lives. Predatory creatures, native to the planet's jungles, were a constant threat. These animals were not the kind of predators seen on the cadets' homeworld. They were massive, hyper-aggressive beasts, armed with claws and fangs that could tear through most materials. Yet, the humans didn't run. They didn't hide. They fought back with a brutal efficiency that left the aliens speechless. What shocked the generals the most, though, was the humans' use of tactics that were completely foreign to them. While the aliens would often organize their soldiers into precise formations and rely on overwhelming firepower or advanced technology to take down their enemies, the Deathworlders relied on strategy that was born of necessity. They set traps using only what they could find. They used the terrain to their advantage, hiding in plain sight and striking from positions that no alien would have ever thought to consider. When it came to hunting, the humans demonstrated an uncanny understanding of their environment. They used the simplest of tools: sticks, stones, fire to kill or drive away predators. It wasn't just brute force, it was cleverness, an ability to improvise in ways that the aliens had never seen. One cadet had even been able to outwit a massive, apex predator by using the native flora to make a poison strong enough to incapacitate it. The generals couldn't fathom how a species that seemed so primitive could do this with such apparent ease. The psychological aspect of the challenge also played a huge role. Many of the aliens had assumed that the humans, with their chaotic and often unpredictable nature, would crack under the intense pressure. But instead of breaking, they adapted and even grew stronger. The cadets shared a camaraderie that seemed almost impossible to the generals. When one of them struggled, the others rallied around them, offering support and encouragement. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about fighting for one another, pushing each other to their limits and beyond. Perhaps the most unnerving part of all was the sheer stoicism with which the humans handled pain. There were no cries for help, no pleas for mercy. Even when they were injured or suffering, they pushed on. The aliens couldn't understand this mentality. In their own cultures, injury meant weakness, and weakness meant death. But the humans, these Deathworlders, treated pain as an inevitable part of survival. They knew how to push through it, to ignore it, to turn it into something that fueled their determination. As the final months of the course approached, the generals began to realize that they had been mistaken. The humans weren't simply surviving, they were thriving in a way that no other species had done before. It was becoming increasingly clear that, if anything, it was the Deathworlders who were the superior warriors. The cadets had shown an unshakable resolve and an adaptability that no amount of advanced technology or superior tactics could rival. The generals, once smug in their belief of their own superiority, now found themselves humbled by a species they had dismissed as weak. By the end of the year-long course, the survivors, nearly all of them, stood before the alien generals, their faces marked by dirt and blood, but their eyes shining with a fierce light. The alien commanders, who had come expecting to witness human failure, were now forced to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth: these Deathworlders were not just survivors. They were warriors in every sense of the word. They had endured, adapted, and conquered an environment that should have broken them. In the days that followed, the aliens began to reconsider their entire understanding of humanity. They saw now that the Deathworlders were far more than they had ever imagined. They were a species forged in the crucible of survival, a species whose resilience and adaptability made them uniquely dangerous. The generals who had once looked down on the humans were now faced with a terrifying realization: they were no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. From that moment onward, the story of the Deathworlder cadets who completed the survival course became a legend. It spread across the stars, told in hushed whispers among alien generals and warriors. The humans had not only survived, they had shown the galaxy that there was more to strength than firepower, technology, and military doctrine. There was a raw, untamable spirit that lived within them, a spirit that no alien force could ever hope to break. The generals had learned a hard lesson: never underestimate the Deathworlders. Because in the end, it wasn't just their bodies that were strong, it was their will, their hearts, and their unyielding determination that made them truly terrifying.